right, I'm just gonna hit good old record on this bad boy. Cool. So welcome everybody to season 2, episode 1. It's been a while. I probably meant to get the first one in like early Jan, if not Feb, but yeah, I just took a bit of time. So super pumped to have Sky on for round 2. Sky was one of the first people on season 1. Probably one of the most popular episodes, actually. Had loads of, yeah, I'd say probably had some of the most down. I'm not surprised. You're popular, though, aren't you? So yeah, we had a good amount of people listening to that. I think it was helpful. We covered loads of topics. I don't even remember, but I remember you went off on quite a few things, so that was good. So
like me.
Yeah. So for those of you just tuning in, my name's Dan Q. I'm the host of the podcast, coach, personal trainer, all that kind of stuff. And today I have Sky Asquith, who's a nutritionist. She's a coach, personal trainer. Recently made the jump online. So she used to work with Pure Gym with me. We were colleagues. You know, she came up as a PT just like me, basically. So I'm super pumped to have her on today just to go over a few things. So I'll just let her do a quick little intro for those of you that don't know her. So Sky, welcome to the pod. Let the people know who you are.
Thanks for having me again. So yeah, you basically just covered it. I am a coach. I mainly work in nutrition now. I've moved a little bit away from the personal trainer side. Still nutrition coaching now, and I only work with females. So I guess that's part of the reason why I'm here, Dan, because we're going to speak about some of the females that I work with. But yeah, I have been a coach for, it's like nearly 8 years now. Doesn't feel like it, but 8 years. Started off as self-employed personal trainer for Pure Gym and went into management. Me and you made a little bit of a dream team at one point, didn't we, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
Kirk's still massive. Then did a bit of PT mentoring. Both of us, again, another dream team.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID happened. But for me, I don't know if you feel this way, because like the things that you're doing in the background at the minute, Dan, COVID's been like a bit of a blessing in disguise.
100%, yeah.
Having that time to think like, what is it you actually want to do? Like if you're going to make a career now, if you could change it and do something else, like what would it be? And for me, it was like, yeah, I want to coach again. And I was planning to do in person, face to face, but online's kind of blown up and it's really working for me. So yeah, studied to be a nutritionist 2 years ago, got certified, and that is where I'm at now.
Cool. Awesome. Well, a few other things have changed. You're now like a redhead, basically. You were brunette the first episode. She goes through phases. Yeah. She's a bit of a nutcase sometimes. But yeah, I think, I know some PTs listen to this. So, if you're a PT just starting off, like it took me, God, well, I've been a PT for over 5 years now, which is crazy to think. But yeah, it took me like 5 years to really figure out where I want to be, like my niche, who I want to work with. And, Sky's taken her 8 years to get to this point. And like you said, it's been a blessing in disguise. So yeah, it's definitely been awesome to have that time to figure things out. The other thing you have to remind me today, because one of my boys back home was like, "Oh, do you ever get some feedback on the podcast?" I was like, "No." I was like, "Go for it." He's like, "You have to stop saying defo and 100%. I was like, "All right." And I've just
say that a lot.
Yeah, I do. He's like, "Just let people talk. Shut up." I was like, "All right." Okay.
What are you gonna replace it with? You should go for like mint or buzzing.
I need like a stress ball. I think like every time I want to say something, I just need to like, you know what I mean? Just do something.
Say it. Defo. No, 100% don't.
Yeah, I know. So yeah. But so we'll dive straight in because I don't want to keep you too long, and it's easy to go off on tangents when we do podcasts together. So the first thing I want to kind of touch base on was Pcos, which I'll let the people know what that is an abbreviation for shortly. But this is a big one that I've had with clients in the past and currently. I actually had Sky come on like a private chat with me and a client not that long ago to really sit down and help my client fully understand what PCOS was, how we could combat it, and how we could just really help her achieve some results. And I think this is a big one that a lot of girls, women hear. It's thrown around on Instagram loads, and I think a lot of people don't know. And just to add to that, I think a lot of guys need to know a bit more about it, because like I could just imagine there's a guy out there, let's just call him Paul, and Paul's like, "Jesus Christ, Emma, like, why aren't you losing weight? Like, we're fucking not eating anything. Like, Emma, what, like, you know what I mean?" And he's freaking out because he's like, "Why is my missus just not losing weight?" And then she's like, "Well, I got PCOS." He's like, "What the fuck is that?" Right. So, Sky, what is PCOS firstly?
Yeah, so PCOS is, it's actually, I don't know if it's because more of us are speaking about it that more people are coming out and going, yeah, I've got PCOS, but it feels like it's a really common syndrome that people seem to have, women seem to have these days. So it stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I think in the UK, like 1 in 10 women have it now. I think like the old understanding of PCOS is that it's just a fertility disorder and it just affects the women's ability to get pregnant and that kind of stuff, but it's actually a lot more complicated than that. It has a lot more other implications. And the reason I personally took such an interest in it when I was studying, especially with Mac Nutrition, was because I had a client with PCOS about 5 years ago, and that exact situation, she was tracking all of her calories, we'd calculated a deficit, she was absolutely nailing it week on week. She was like, she'd gotten to the point where she was just so desperate to get results. Like she was 100% adherent, and it was really upsetting her that she wasn't. And every week she'd come, we'd weigh her like 3 times a week, take an average, and just nothing was changing. And we were accounting for everything, like all of her activity. Even I gave her like an example week to make sure that she wasn't slipping up on calories anywhere, like there wasn't anything being tracked incorrectly. And for about another 3 weeks, nothing changed. And had I known a little bit more about PCOS then, I probably would have helped her. Instead, I completely failed her. And we ended up just parting ways because she was just like, she kind of felt like she was broken, I think. She was like, it's not working. Like, this is science and it's not working for me. Whereas what it was way more complicated. So there's kind of 3 main things that PCOS can affect. So the main thing is fertility, and one of the main symptoms is either missing or irregular periods. And I think that's how most women end up getting a diagnosis, is because they have missing or irregular periods. Then you have got metabolic implications. In women with PCOS, we tend to see hyperandrogenism, so elevated male hormones. And then this tends to drive some insulin resistance and also decreases their BMR basically, and it can be up to like 35% in some women. So if you took a woman that was like 70 kilos normal and then a woman with PCOS 70 kilos, she would have to have like up to 35% less calories at rest. So that was the main reason why I failed my client, because I didn't know any of this. Another thing is obviously the cysts on the ovaries, but it's quite important to know that you don't have to have cysts on your ovaries to have the syndrome. You basically need to have 2 of 3 different symptoms to have PCOS. So irregular or missing periods, high androgens, and multiple cysts. And then if you've got 2 of those, you are classed as having the syndrome. So yeah, it's super complicated. And the symptoms that come from the different parts of it, like the insulin resistance, obviously there's weight gain, the androgens, male hormones, when they're elevated, you've got things like acne, oily skin, and there's quite a lot of psychological disturbance as well. Like women with PCOS very often have anxiety and depression alongside that. So I think it is really important, like you said, that people know about it, because it isn't just the case of my client's not losing weight. It's like, what is going on at a deeper level, and how can you help to kind of manage that?
Yeah.
And there are some really cool things that you can do, but I think that's the main thing, is if you think you've got PCOS, like go to your doctor first. Don't just self-diagnose yourself, because there's 2 things that can happen. Have you heard of hypothalamic amenorrhea? So when a woman loses her period through like stress or undereating or overexercise, typically you see it in bodybuilders, in female bodybuilders, when we get really like to like the very, very depths of my prep, that can sometimes be misdiagnosed as PCOS, because you've got the same kind of thing of no period or missing periods. So it's really important that you go to the GP, and they can then tell you, they'll do tests, they'll test your hormones, stuff like that. And if they find that you've got these elevated male hormones, or you've got cysts on your ovaries, then you know for sure that you've got PCOS, and then you can start to look at what you can do. Or in my experience and my clients' experiences, doctors aren't the best at the advice and things that they prescribe. A lot of doctors are quite behind with the research. They don't really look into it. They tend to see the insulin resistance and bracket it with like type 2 diabetes and say, right, you need to take metformin, or you're not going to get pregnant, you're not going to lose weight. Whereas actually a lot of women have successfully just changed their lifestyles and reversed a lot of their symptoms of PCOS. So do get a diagnosis, but then it is worth knowing that there's other things that you can do to help.
Yeah. Just a quick one on that. So you said it a while ago. So for anyone who is listening who heard Sky say your BMR could be reduced by 35%, just remember your BMR is the amount of energy that your body needs when you're just like at rest. So like through the entire day, when you're not really doing anything, just watching Netflix on the couch, right? I always say, so your BMR, that's what it is. And then your total daily energy expenditure is, all the energy that you need throughout the day, because you're cooking, you're washing dishes, you're running, you're exercising, all that stuff. Why do you think, just curious before you keep going, why do you think the doctors don't know more about it?
I just don't think in terms of, I think doctors are taught how to treat things with medication. I think that's it. I think it's like, this is this syndrome, this is what it causes. For instance, insulin resistance, if people aren't aware, is what we see in type 2 diabetes. Is insulin is a storage hormone. When we eat, the body sends out insulin to take all of the food, which is then broken down, and put it into fat cells or muscle cells where it can be stored or used. When you're insulin resistant, the body can't do that. So then you get this kind of buildup of glucose in the blood, which is quite toxic, and it can lead to weight gain. So we see that in PCOS women. So I think they just bracket that with diabetes. What do? They go on metformin, which is a drug that helps with that. And that's kind of their answer. I don't think doctors are educated in ways of nutrition and exercise and supplementation, like, which we'll get onto in a minute, the kind of supplements that you can use. I just think, that's just not. And I think there's obviously great doctors out there, like, Dr. Mike, people that are passionate about going and learning on their own about lifestyle and nutrition interventions. But I think normal GPs just, the education that they're getting is not up to date, and they're not keeping up to date.
Yeah, and I'd say, this is not us having a dig at doctors, by the way. I've got mates studying, and if they listen to this, they're going to be like, "Fuck you, Dan, telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about." And I'd be like, "No, it's just it. Like you said, they learn so many things, and we learn different things. It's like when we go to a physio, sometimes I think there's really great physios. Sometimes I think there's some average physios that I probably know a little bit more about certain things, right? So it's like anything else. It's not necessarily their field of expertise, hence why we get you on the podcast, Guy. So, and like you said, and that relates like 100% to, and I just said 100%, but this relates massively to my client who, like, in the very beginning, I was like, yeah, just eat low, GI foods, like glycemic index or whatever. Like, try not to eat foods that are going to spike your, sugars in your blood and do all this and all that. And then, obviously we started to learn about it. We got you on the call, which is obviously what you're going to talk about now, which is what supplements or what could we start doing to help her almost like regulate her body properly again, or at least kind of help her, I don't know, combat this deficit that she's always having to kind of think about, right?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to say that there's a lot of Instagram pages out there and people out there that have PCOS, which are like advocates for it, which I think is amazing. But there tends to be this little community, and they call each other like sisters, as in like sisters, which I think some women really love that, and it makes them feel like, it makes them feel like, oh, I've got sisters. But it's also like, you've got to remember, you are an individual. Just because you have PCOS doesn't mean that you are the same and that your symptoms are the same as all these other women. And it doesn't mean that the same thing is going to work for everybody. So like, if you are a coach listening to this thinking, right, I've got a client with PCOS, what can I do? What do I need to do? It's going to be different between, you might have 5 clients with PCOS and you might have to try different things. It's going to come down to a lot of patience, trying a lot of different things. But obviously the main thing, and someone said to me, like, if you could recommend one thing that you get anybody has to do, 100% be supplement with inositol. So myo-inositol is basically a form of carbohydrate. People hear the word and they're like, ooh, sounds fancy, sounds dangerous. What is it? Like, there's loads and loads and loads of research behind it. But it has been shown to kind of improve all of the symptoms and all of the things that people suffer with PCOS. So helps improve insulin sensitivity, which you obviously want to be doing. It increases fertility. It can reduce anxiety and depression. One of my clients, she started taking inositol. And I think it was 2 months later, she was pregnant. She's pregnant now.
Wow.
So yeah, you have to take it every day for at least 6 months. Anything between like 2 to 6 milligrams a day, 6 months. And you might see an improvement a lot quicker, but it has to be like at least 6 months. So I think people take it like a couple of weeks, like, oh, I don't really notice a difference. Other clients have said that it helps reduce their appetite. So definitely the first thing I would say is go my protein, bulk powders, wherever you can get it really, really cheap. Mayo inositol. That would be something that I would definitely say to do. It's like a wonder supplement.
Yeah, well, look, my client, since we had our chat, she's been taking her supplements every day. We haven't been tracking her food overly. If anything, we haven't tracked it. I've just said, look, just be mindful. She's been exercising a little bit more than usual, and she's consistently been losing weight, probably the longest amount of time in the last couple of years, and she's buzzing. Like, she's so pumped. And I'm just like, and it's cool because we're not having to feel like, she's not feeling restricted, because I'm not like, follow this, or, you know, decrease your calories. Let's just focus on your exercise, take your supplements, and let's just see what happens until it doesn't work. Right.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think when it comes down to like the setup of your diet, obviously keep in mind that you may potentially have to eat less than somebody that doesn't have PCOS. Like, that's just the bad news of it. So it's the same as with anybody else. It's finding the best way that you can adhere to lower calories with things like better quality carbs. Like, you want to kind of have more whole grains, fruits and vegetables, rather than your, you know, like we said, higher GI carbs and your processed foods, those kind of things you want to, which we kind of advocate to everybody anyway. But yeah, in the research, it has shown that, you know, a moderate carb intake rather than a high carb intake is probably better. It's going to help with symptoms, but it's not like the be all and end all. You don't have to be like, okay, I'm insulin resistant, I need to go low carb. Like, that's not it. And actually, like, a higher fat diet probably wouldn't be very good. It's been shown to worsen symptoms in some women. You can get two types of women with PCOS as well. A lot of women with PCOS tend to be overweight because of this lower BMR that starts, and then they're eating normally, and then they start to gain weight, and they don't really know why if they've not had a diagnosis. But you can get lean PCOS. And with lean PCOS women, their fat cells are insulin resistant, but their muscle cells aren't. So you can still get glucose and energy into the muscles. So if they're an active woman and somebody that trains, they're not really going to gain weight because they have a way to use this energy that's coming in, and insulin is still taken into the muscles, and they're not storing it because the fat cells are resistant. Whereas with overweight women, it can be both, or it can be just the muscle cells. So lean PCOS could probably get away with a little bit more carb in their diet, but it's not low carb, it's not keto. It's just looking at the sources rather than the amounts, I think. Just making better choices that way. Obviously, a higher fiber diet is going to help with hunger and with appetite, because some women with PCOS struggle with their appetite. And you obviously don't want to be having, like you said, those massive crashes and those blood sugar spikes all throughout the day when you're already struggling with hunger and appetite. You don't want to then feed into it by not having quality carbs. Kind of monounsaturated fats as your fat sources are probably going to be better. Things like olive oil, avocado, nuts, and a bit of a higher protein intake. What we can see in someone with PCOS is that they have metabolic inflexibility. So when we talk about metabolic flexibility, is the body's ability to switch fuel sources. And in a healthy individual, when we are in a state of rest or low intensity exercise or sleeping, the body tends to oxidize fat. In women with PCOS, it oxidizes protein. So women going to bed at night potentially are breaking down protein, which we don't really want to do. So increasing protein intake, like quite a big serving before bed, just so we're not losing muscle mass, because that's obviously quite a negative thing. And then things like exercise, especially resistance training to improve insulin sensitivity. That's the case in everybody, not just women with PCOS. And yeah, just assuming like a lower need for energy. And we know that high protein, high fiber is going to help with hunger anyway. So finding a way that you can set up a diet to help. You know, some women with PCOS do really well on fasting, because it means that they can have bigger meals within a window. Some women really don't. Some women need to eat regularly. So it does come down to the individual, and it is going to take a little bit of like monitoring and adapting. And then yeah, coming into the supplements, inositol 100%, and then vitamin D and fish oil, which I recommend to everybody anyway. But women with PCOS are almost always deficient in vitamin D, and most people are deficient anyway in the UK because we get no sun.
Mm-hmm.
So fish oils and vitamin D, but probably just a higher dosage than normal. So I tend to say 1,000 milligrams of fish oil, but 1,000 to 2,000 is probably going to be key for a woman with PCOS. And then about 1,000 IUs of vitamin D, which is probably double the dosage that you'd normally take.
Perfect. So if you're out there, Paul, and you're wondering why your missus is struggling, I'm not saying she's got PCOS, but you might want to go check it out. And just to summarize, I think everything that Sky said, there was loads, so I'm not going to summarize it all, but I think the biggest one is you potentially need to go to the GP and find out. I would say, I don't want to put everybody under that umbrella, but if you're someone who's quite overweight, maybe, and you're struggling and for some reason you think there's something wrong with you, maybe go to the GP first, because I think there's a lot of people that tend to be overweight that have PCOS. Am I right to say that?
Yeah, as long as it's like accompanied by a missing or irregular period.
Yes.
Because obviously there's thyroid issues as well. But
yeah,
same again, you just go to your doctor if you
yeah.
think, but like you have to be.
Yeah, you got to be switched on. Like, just have a think about if you have any of the symptoms Sky mentioned. Go check the GP out. Obviously, if you get that diagnosis, which hopefully you don't, then you know, all right, my BMR might be reduced by X%. So that means that naturally I have to eat less, which means I might have to eat less, try to exercise a bit more, get into a strength training program. Then we got the supplements that Sky mentioned. So inositol, you said, vitamin D, fish oils, and then anything else?
Well, there is some cool research around L-carnitine. So like L-carnitine is one of those like bro supplements that people thought helped weight loss and fat loss in normal healthy individuals, and actually it just kept falling down in the research. It didn't. However, they used it in a study where they had elevated insulin, which is obviously what you've got in women with PCOS. And they did a study, I think it was like 12 weeks, and they found that over the 12 weeks with, I think it was 250 milligrams a day, it enhanced fat loss and it reduced their overall kind of measurements, and it helped with their glycemic control, which is part and parcel of insulin resistance. So if you can afford it and you want to, L-carnitine is worth a try as well.
Cool. So so try that one out maybe. And then I would just say, like Sky mentioned, the basics, which are, try and make better choices with your food, drink loads of water, do all those kind of things, get fiber in your diet, fruit and veg, like just the stuff that you should be doing. So no, that's super helpful. Thank you for covering that. Even if, like I said, a few people listen to this and they think, wow, that might be me. Hopefully that just helped you out. So that brings us to topic number 2 today, which again, we don't have to spend too much time on this one because Herbalife's Herbalife. But I thought, what, that's one thing I hadn't covered on the podcast, any episodes. And I've had loads of I've had you on, I've had biochemists on, I've had, other nutritionists on. And I was like, you know what, we need to talk about Herbalife because I haven't touched it. And it just seems like I know more and more friends or, friends of friends on Facebook and Insta who are taking this or doing it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not really an expert in it. I just don't really advocate it. So what's the issue with Herbalife? Like, what is it? Like, so talk to me, Sky. What is it?
Yeah, I had to think about this, right? Because it's like Herbalife essentially is a meal replacement, right? But I don't see people bashing meal replacements as much as they bash Herbalife. Like, it seems like everybody jumps on Herbalife. So I was having to think about it, went back onto their website, and I think the main issue people have with Herbalife, I don't know if you're aware of this, is that it's an MLM scheme, right? So they have distributors. So people make money off selling these products to people. So they're already actually, it's not just that.
Repeat that again, Sky, just in case it didn't record yet. What did you say? Sorry. So it's an MLM scheme. Yeah.
So you start selling these products, you get a cut of what you sell, and then you get people on your team, which already just seems like underhanded shit, where it's like you're not really bothered about the products, you're bothered about making money. So that's where it starts. But it's not just that, it's the fact that you can have your own Herbalife nutrition coach when you buy these products. They are basically the distributors, and they have zero qualifications in fitness or nutrition, and they are given advice in their little Herbalife communities. And I can remember my friend did it, and she was running fitness sessions in the park. Like, she was in the Navy at the time and actually had a bit of a clue, but nobody checked what she was doing. Nobody was governing what she was doing. Nobody checked the advice she was given. So I think that's people's main problem, is there's unqualified people then becoming these Herbalife nutrition coaches, which are just glorified salespeople.
Or celebs.
Yeah, exactly. Giving out advice that they're not qualified to give, don't necessarily know what they're talking about. And all Herbalife really is just an aggressive calorie deficit. You are swapping out meals in the replacement of shakes. Now, have I never told my clients to replace meals with shakes? Yeah, I have. But that's alongside education and behavior change and putting habits in place so that when they eventually stop having a shake for that meal, they know what to do. So this is what happens. I reckon if you got before and afters of Herbalife people, and then and after, they would have gained all their weight back, because they don't know what to do. All they're doing is having shakes, and then they stop having the shakes, they start having meals, their calorie consumption goes up and they gain weight. So I think that's the main issue, is that unqualified people are going around in these Herbalife communities giving advice that is potentially harmful, incorrect. There's no education on behavior change. And also the products themselves aren't very high quality. You would be better off just having a protein shake and a multivitamin, like, if you're going to do it, if you're going to be like that aggressive with your dieting.
And I think this is where as well, like, it's just marketing, right? It's like anything else. It's marketing. You've got the top dogs of, Towie, and especially in the UK, obviously in Canada, there'll be, there'll be other shows, in the States there'll be other shows and people doing it. And like, I'm all for somebody making a quick buck, but it's like you said, they're not necessarily educated. They're doing loads of fitness related stuff that we had to study for and get qualifications for. And I think the one thing that bothers me, and I would relate this to a load of other products, is like, I know someone, like a friend of ours who, recently I've noticed certain products being advertised on Facebook, right? And I've looked into it. I remember sending you a message saying, have you heard of this shit? Like, do you know what this is? Because it's talking about how it suppresses your appetite and there's these specific fucking grains in it or whatever the hell it is. And I'm like, I can't find any research on it. I can't even find the ingredient list on it. And that's my problem, I think, with a lot of it is, again, I'm all for you making a quick buck. You got to feed the kids, go for it, put food on the table. But when you're telling me that there's some sage from fucking West Africa that's supposed to make me like suppressant to eating, I just don't get it. Like, and I think that's what people buy into, because it's the classic, ooh, like shiny object. I want to have it now.
It's magic. Yeah, it's magic. And it gets you these results. And it's like, at what cost? At what cost? Like, the fact that it is actually quite expensive, Herbalife. And then what are you actually getting at the end of it? Are you being taught anything? No, because these people aren't qualified.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's expensive. It's expensive. Yeah. I mean, again, I haven't really checked into it, but I remember, again, speaking to somebody and they're like, I don't know why people do it. It's actually quite expensive. You could just get a PT and learn for a month and you'll probably have it set. Cool. So I don't know if you want to add anything else, but I just thought we definitely should cover it. And I don't know.
I don't know if like someone might sue us. Someone from Herbalife might just come and sue us for sleep.
No, if James Smith's calling people a C-bomb every other day and he's ripping Herbalife, I think we're fine. But yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, you good with that?
Yeah. Cool. I think it's not the meal replacement that is such a bad thing. So again, I think PTs like to jump on that and like, you shouldn't be replacing meals with shakes. Like, you know what? For some people that might work.
Hey, it works for me sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But that's because we have an underpinning foundation of knowledge as to what we're doing and why. And we know what to do when we want to maintain our weight. Whereas if you're not teaching people to do that when you're giving them meal replacement shakes, that is the problem. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just finish it on this is, if you don't know why you're losing weight with Herbalife, it's just because you're not eating enough food, right? Like if you need 2,000 calories and you're, having 3 Herbalife shakes a day and that's 1,400 calories, well, naturally, you're probably going to lose a bit of weight. It's maybe a bit aggressive. You can maybe get away with it for a little bit, but long-term, it's probably not going to be a show. And if you're not really sure what happens from there, go follow Sky, because you got some great infographics that just talk about binge eating and all that stuff. So number three, this is a question I've never asked you either. And I was like, you know what? I just want to get your opinion on this. So the question I wanted to ask you was, if you had to just solely focus on like your health, maximizing it as much as you could, perform it. So just looking at it, because I'm training a lot of basketball guys at the moment. I have a lot of kids that I'm training up, and I'm always getting these questions. And I asked Mary Spano this not long ago, who's like head dietitian in the States for Olympians and stuff. And she mentioned a bit more of like a plant-based diet. And I thought I'd ask you the same question. Like, what would you really focus on diet-wise? And I say diet, but just like, what would you incorporate in terms of your meals every single day if you were just like, you know what, I want to be the healthiest motherfucker on this planet? Like, what would you do?
Okay. I'm guessing that we're talking physical health, because if you say health, it's like, what part of health? Because
Yeah. So sorry, like physical,
yeah.
you're not trying to necessarily be shredded, but obviously
Yeah.
in my opinion, like you're fairly lean, you're maintaining it. It's not a hassle, but like, you're just like, you're performing at this optimal level.
Yeah. I think definitely a plant-centric diet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you ever look into what are called the blue zones, so they're places in the world where people have the lowest disease rates, and they have like the highest amount of people like living till they're 199 and all that jazz. None of them are vegan. None of them are plant-based. They all actually have totally different diets, and it's more about the lifestyle that they lead. But I think for me, plant-centric 100%, and just eating things as close to their natural state as possible. Obviously, like, our Western diet is pretty shocking. Like, processed food, we know, is not great. Like, yes, in moderation, it's fine. But for me, I think I wouldn't necessarily fast, especially if performance was my jam. I wouldn't advocate. I know it's a bit of a buzzword and people love it at the minute. And I think for people that want to improve their health with fat loss, it can work. But if your aim is not fat loss and it's health and performance, I think eating regular meals and having a meal pattern and a rhythm, so your body can fall into a rhythm, you're not eating erratically, I think that's really important for health. I think that's really important for staying in tune with like hunger and satiety. So regular set meals throughout the day, and making sure that you're getting like a balance of nutrients in those meals. So adequate protein at each meal, carbohydrates, fats, like all the normal things. But in terms of performance, you probably are definitely going to want to have like a moderate to high carb intake. And I think that's where some people fall down, is thinking like that they maybe should go keto so they become fat adapted. And it's like, being keto and having a performance goal is a little bit like having a car with 6 gears and you can only ever get to 5th. Like, you just lose some of that aerobic capacity that you could have if you had carbohydrates in the diet. So I think adequate protein, regular protein throughout the day is going to help with muscle building. It's going to help with repair, immune function, you know, anywhere between like 1.2 to 1.7 grams per kilogram if you're somebody that's going to track that kind of thing. Moderate carbohydrate. It's difficult because for performance it can be anywhere from like 3 to 10 grams per kilogram, depending on like
if
how
you're an
much
endurance
exercise
athlete,
you do.
if you're a strength, 100%.
100%, yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's 200% in a row. Sorry, Bougie. That's my buddy Matt. If you're listening to this.
And then fiber. Fiber is a massive thing. That's something that I always focus on my clients. So calories, adequate energy, obviously. You can't perform if you don't have adequate energy. It doesn't matter where that energy is coming from. If there's not enough, that's when you're going to run into problems. So enough calories, regular protein throughout the day, carbohydrates, and fiber within that. Around, I think the recommendation is 30 grams a day. But I tend to go by 15 grams per 1,000 calories, because you might have somebody that's like eating 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day, depending on what they're doing. So obviously their fiber intake's going to be more, but there's so many benefits to fiber. It's criminal that people don't pay enough attention to it, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, okay, cool. I think that's really good advice. I think the main reason I asked is, I would say, and this was a big fad in like the NBA, like the basketball world, especially in the last 5 years, is loads of players have gone vegan, like just gone all like just full blown vegan. And I know a lot of them swear by it, and probably because they just made better food choices, right? Compared to, eating burgers and eating out all the time. And they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Yeah, no shit. Because you just eat more vegetables. But a lot of people do swear by it. And I might be chatting shit here, but I think there are some fairly big like meta-analysis that like talk about, you know, that overall vegan diets might be slightly better in terms of like disease prevention. Is that maybe right to say?
I think it's
Like I think you could assume that, okay, it makes a bit of sense, right?
yeah.
But I think a lot of people, what they get wrong there is they say, oh, well, there you go, you can't eat meat. And I think there's not necessarily anything saying that meat's causing these diseases. It could be so many other factors. Could be a smoker.
Yeah.
You could be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot
So
of
this,
people think performance, health,
yeah,
cut meat out.
this is the thing. I think when you're looking at a vegan diet, you're not just looking at the diet. These people that are vegan tend to be health seeking people. Their other habits are health seeking. They're active. They don't smoke. They don't drink a lot. You know, all the other choices that they're making they're impacting their whole health. And I know people that have a vegan diet and it is shocking. It's shit. And you've got to remember that there are a lot of deficiencies that can come with a vegan diet, you know, vitamin B6 that we're not getting from these animal products. Things that you have to supplement, you know, you're not getting complete protein sources. If you're not switched on about it and you don't know what different vegetable protein sources to put together and what makes complete protein, you are essentially like missing out on some muscle retention, muscle building, you know, growth, repair, all the stuff that we need for protein. So I have a friend who's a nutritionist too. He's vegan and he's super healthy. He's huge. He's absolutely jacked. And he's done that on a vegan diet because he's worked it out and he's been clever about it. And he is super healthful. But there's people that I know that are vegan that still eat processed stuff. And just because they're not eating red meat doesn't mean that they are healthier per se. So yes, it can be healthier in certain aspects, but it's not just the diet, and it does take forward thinking and planning. You can't just go, right, I eat plants now, I'm healthy. It's not the way that it works.
Cool. So I think we're in agreement, and this goes back to the podcast I did with Mary that anybody could go have a quick look at, which was, she said, you know, some of her Olympians, pro athletes, they focus on eating a plant-based diet, but she actually encouraged them to have their protein come from animal sources because, like you said, it's really difficult for them to be switched on and, you know, look at where they're going to get it. And it's probably more expensive too, depending on where you're getting it. So it's probably easier for you to do that, but cool. So we're in agreement there. Spot on. And that takes us to the last topic of the day. So, you know, I think season 1, I was doing like flavor of the week and all that kind of stuff. And so, so we could call this the flavor of the week, flavor of the day, topic of the day. And Sky was like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to talk about this. I'm going to have to like really do some research because that's just how Sky is. And I was like, no, just don't worry about it. Because we want to talk about CBD. You know, have you taken CBD before?
Yeah, so I've had a few of the products like Trip and the little drinks that you can get. You know, you can get them in Bills. You've been to Bills.
Okay, so you're getting like fucking weird stuff from like convenience store stuff.
Yeah. That's what we get in the UK though, Dan. This is the point I'm going to make. But go on. Okay. I haven't had high dosages now.
Okay, so I've bought CBD a few times in the UK.
Listen, hang on. Don't you and your family in Canada like?
No, we don't own. No, we don't own. No. We have we have weed stocks. Jesus Christ, man! If I had CBD company, I would not be doing a podcast right now. I'd be on a beach somewhere, like loving life. No, yeah. So thanks for that, Sky. Telling the whole world I own stocks. Pot stocks. Go pump those stocks, guys. Pump those stocks. Try to retire next year. So yeah, CBD. I bought a few. I bought like, you know, over the counter stuff at, you know, the pharmacy. And then I recently bought some from a company called Blessed in the UK. Like, did a bit of my research. They're apparently the best quality in the UK. And personally, you know, like I think at the moment I like it. I personally feel like it helps. You know, sometimes I swear my inflammation disappears because like my knee's always slightly swollen because I have no cartilage in it in certain areas. So there's certain days I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, like my knee feels unreal. There's certain days where I swear my sleep is better. Or like when I take it regularly, it just feels like I'm just way more rested. The quality, like I feel like my dreams are vivid. I feel like I'm like on friggin' I don't know, shrooms or something. Not that I take shrooms, mom, because mom listens to this podcast. I don't take shrooms.
You
Relax.
sure that's just CBD?
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, but I've looked at a bit of research, and we're gonna touch on it real quick. And there's not really much out there. So I guess I'll let you kind of go on because I just went off on a tangent. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that's my issue then, is like there isn't, the research is lacking, and the research that's out there is not of a very good quality. And there's a lot of animal research, but again, we are not animals, so we can't really extrapolate data from animals and say that it's going to do the same thing in humans. So the research that I've looked into and that I found is looked at seizures, people with epilepsy and stuff like that. It's actually being really helpful for people with that, but the kind of not the kind of dosage that you get from. I think it's different in places like America. Inflammation, there is actually some promising research around, like you said, reducing inflammation, 100%. In the current research into like sleep and anxiety and things, the jury's kind of out. I don't know if it's a bit more of a placebo in that sense, but in terms of like inflammation, reducing seizures in people with epilepsy, yeah, I think it 100% can help. However, it is all about the dosage, and a lot of the products that float around the UK don't have a high dosage, or the dosage that they claim is not what's actually in it.
I was just about to say
the
same thing.
The cost of actually having the dosages that you would need, it would just be extortionate. So
yeah, I think if you're in the States and if you're in Canada, it might be slightly different because obviously we're just ahead of the game there right now. Like everything's legalized and there's a lot more money. And I think we'll see a lot more studies come out soon because of it. In the UK, for sure, like you said, it's either not correct in terms of what's on the label, or there's just not much in it. And I think we probably looked at some of the similar stuff, and you can go check this out on like Examine. Like there's a lot of info on Examine about it. One that I looked at it more from a performance standpoint in terms of like strength training and recovery. So there wasn't much. And if you guys want to go check it out, you can sign up to Mass. Is a really cool platform. They basically go over studies and kind of just like go through salient points and stuff. So one of them was 2 groups of people where they just had them do like bicep curls. So eccentric bicep curls. So basically just think you're slowly, lowering the weights, tends to cause a bit more soreness compared to just lifting it, controlled up and down. Just keeping it simple. And they looked at, all right, if we gave CBD to one group versus the other after doing bicep curls, did they really notice a difference in recovery? And the answer was no, it wasn't significant. It kind of cracks me up that it's a bicep curl, because I'm like, well, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe like they should have made him do like a back squat, like heavy weight. And maybe like 48 hours later, with the one guy would have been like, shit, man, CBD made me feel good. But like a bicep curl, I'm just like, I don't know. So that kind of cracked me up. And then another study was kind of something similar. They did it like, I think it was either like a leg extension or like a single leg press or something. And they actually did it with like a cream. And I think it's a big thing that people are using now. A lot of people use like the cream for like local inflammation. And I know like massage therapists use it. And again, the results weren't very promising. It was like, I don't think it was significant in terms of how the study was conducted. And if it was like so low that it was like pretty much just pointless. But again, one of the big things that they talked about was that there's not really many studies out there. So we're not saying that you shouldn't waste your money on CBD, but we're just telling you to just be a bit cautious of like where you're buying it from, the dosage, the company. Just do your research and try it.
I think it's an exciting area, and like you said, I think there's definitely more research to come, more, better quality, better controlled research that we can definitely say we've seen a cause and effect here. So yeah, not to say that we think it's horseshit, it's bullshit like other products. It's not. It's just we can't say, yeah, go and have this dosage. This research showed this. It is just,
very
if you can't afford it, if you can't afford it and you're stretching yourself because you've heard these amazing things, like especially if you live in the UK, probably just wait until we catch up a bit.
Yeah. And I swear I always hear again from a mate going, oh, my mate just started a CBD company, you want to buy some? And I'm just like, he's like, oh, it's cheaper. Then I'm like, how much is it? He's like, oh, it's only 45 pounds a bottle. I'm like, it's literally the same price. And you're basically just getting it from God knows where, and you're putting your own label on it. I'm like, no, thanks. So yeah, just be mindful. Cool. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I want to cover today. I thought it was going to be like a solid, half hour, 45-minute max, but usually always longer looking at the time. It doesn't matter. So as always, really appreciate you coming on, Sky. I think the whole PCOS Herbalife stuff was probably going to be the most helpful for a lot of people. Not saying that the others weren't, but I think, if you're somebody who struggles with PCOS and understanding fad diets and Herbalife, then hopefully you're a bit more clued up today. So last thing I'll just ask is, if people want to chat to you, talk to you, they want to get some advice, they want to work with you, where is the best place for them to find you?
So I've got OnlyFans. No, I'm joking.
Oh, wow. Going straight in.
No, joking. Instagram.
You know what? You probably would make a couple bucks though, being serious. Like, well, I'm just saying, I've heard people say like, show me your feet and start an OnlyFans. Like, there's some weird people out there. So I'm sure you could do something.
You know what? When I worked at Pure Gym, it'd get to like the middle of every month and I'd be like, man, why am I so skinned? I'm just going to start OnlyFans, but never got there. But no, Instagram is the place. So Sky Elizabeth Coaching, but there's a full stop in between Sky Elizabeth and Coaching. And that's where I spend most of my time, either on Instagram or with my clients. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So as always, go check out Sky. Her stuff's really good. She's, again, make some pretty crazy videos. They're funny though. So make you laugh. And I swear that's why you're so good at what you do, because people relate to you. I think that's a big thing. And that's why I try to tell a lot of PTs now is like, you want to obviously put really good content out, but try to just showcase you, like, be relatable and be funny. Don't be afraid to be an idiot, because that's what people buy. They buy people. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
So if you need to find anything I do, just check me out at Abante Performance, so ABANTE. If you're wondering what the hell that is, it's Latin for advanced. I found it 5 years ago and I ran with it. So that's what it is.
I did not know that. I've just learned.
Yeah, because one of my mates told me, asked me like, I think it was a month ago, and he was like, what the fuck's Abante? And it was like in a group chat. He's like, where the fuck's Abante? And they call me Abante. They like don't even say my first name half the time. They're like, yo, Abante. And I'm like, he's like, where'd it come from? I was like, I was trying to get advanced performance, but obviously that was taken because everybody calls themselves advanced. And they were like, and I was like, oh, I had to look at it in a different language, and I found in Latin it was Abante, and he's like, oh, that's low key fire. I was like, I know.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was like a basketball player's name.
No. Imagine calling your kid Abante. Yo, Abante, come over.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there's weirder names out there. So no, spot on. Thanks for your time as always. So make sure you go check out Sky. And that is season 2, episode 1 in the books. See you later.